The first record of a Chittlehampton school was built in 1815. It was only held on Sundays and Saint Days, but the school would be from 8 a.m. until 7:30 p.m. During the school day, children mainly taught each other to read Christian books, but writing and arithmetic were not taught.
The headmaster on that time was paid £6 a year. He would be responsible for teaching children about the sinfulness of pride, idleness, swearing, lying, and disobedience.
The children would be taught in houses that were in front of church. These have now been pulled down.
John Pedler was the head teacher in 1841 and stayed for the next 35 years. Children were now taught in two buildings, the old houses and the church room, which was the top floor of these cottages.
There were now many more children in school, but some children were still needed to go out to work, and families could not afford for their children to attend school. School records showed that children had days off to help farmers rattle picking, tilling potatoes, picking up stones, blackberry picking and harvesting. Children also had a day off for the new Barnstable Fair, which was a big event in the farm year.
A new school rule came into force in 1863. It wanted every town to have at least one primary school that would offer boys and girls an education that would be paid for by the government. This meant there were lots of new schools being built and it was free. It meant the poorer children were not able to go to school.
The Act also meant lessons were more structured and reading, writing and arithmetic would be taught. Writing was often on slates or on sandpits for younger children. Paper and ink pens were only used occasionally by older children as they would have been expensive. A new school building was built on the site of the workhouses next to the church. It had a bell tower above the entrance and only had one room. The children moved into the new schoolroom in November 1865.
School Inspector's Report, 1865.
Mixed school. This school is doing uncommonly well. The weak front is the reading, which is hardly loud enough in the lower classes and the wanted a specimen in the uppers. Night school. In the night school I examined 8 young people who passed an incredible examination.
Children could attend school for free, although it was still not compulsory for them to do so. If children from poor families had to work during the day, they could attend the night school in order to learn to read and write. All became compulsory following the Education Act from 1870 onwards. To begin with, it was compulsory for 5-10-year-olds to have an education. School teachers at this time were very strict.
17th of November 1869, I was kept in for 20 minutes for making mistakes in my lesson today.
I was kept in for losing my place when reading out loud to the class.
I was kept in for having 5 mistakes in my writing.
A school treat would be a visit to the village vicarage for tea. Headmaster's Records, March 12, 1877. The second standard is due to write on paper for the first time.
During the early 1900s, Mr. Hall was headmaster. As well as lessons in reading, writing and arithmetic, boys would also be taught gardening and girls would be taught needlework. Examinations in drawing would also take place.
There were now 167 children on the register, but often poor attendance meant that there were barely more than 125 present on average each week. Attendance was encouraged, and in 1901, some parents were summoned to the school by the headmaster to discuss their children's attendance.
Children would often miss school due to illnesses such as scarlet fever, mumps, measles and whooping cough. Children were also still being kept at home to help with the harvest.
Mr. Bevan became the head teacher in 1914. If children passed an entrance exam for grammar school, they would leave Chittlehampton at 11 years old. If not, they would stay at school until they were 14 years old.
During the war years, the school had to close for a fortnight in order for the older children to assist with the hay harvest. This was because all the adults were away at the war. In December 1914, the girls in school made socks, mittens and chest protectors, amongst other items that were sent out to the soldiers fighting in the trenches.
In 1918, the school was closed from 29th October to 18th November due to the epidemic of influenza, which was later known as the Spanish flu. In 1919, at 11 a.m. on 11th November, Chittlehampton School had their first 2-minute silence for Remembrance Day. This is a practice that continued until 2021. In 1938, the school was closed for 2 days so that electric lights could be fitted. Due to other schools in the area now opening, the school numbers on the register were now just 60.
On the 13th of June 1940, the first evacuees arrived, but they could not be formally admitted for school for another fortnight due to seating difficulties, there being an extra 125 children to cater for. During the school summer holidays, the school remained open to anyone who wished to continue their education. Teachers took turns to attend school over the holidays and teach those children who wish for extra lessons.
South Moulton Senior School opened and Chittlehampton became a junior mixed school. So now all children could leave Chittlehampton at 11 years old and continue their education in South Moulton or Barnstaple until they were 15 years old.
Improvements to the school building have been made throughout its history. An additional classroom had been built so that now there was a smaller infant classroom and a larger junior classroom that could be divided into two. An upper junior for 9 to 11 year olds and a lower junior class for 7 to 9 year olds. Coal stoves would heat the school and outside toilets were still the only ones available. The governor's report on the school premises in the 1955 states, although old, they are very well maintained and have been improved by the lowering ceilings. Outside the garden area, where children would have been taught to grow vegetables, was to be tarmacked up as playground. Until this time, children would play on the square. An imaginary line ran from the top to the bottom of the square, separating an area for the play from the rest of the square.
During this period, a new kitchen was to be built onto the village hall. Until now, meals would have been brought up to the village hall in large aluminium trays. Children would have to walk to the village hall and back every day, regardless of the weather, in order to eat lunch.
Dick Bayliss was appointed as head teacher in 1956. At 8:55 a.m. each day, it was the job of an older child to ring the bell in the bell tower for the school to start at 9 a.m. Children who lived nearby would often wait until they heard the bell and then run to school. If they were late, they would be punished by having to stay in at break time. Children at Chittlehampton would now write in books. They had 4 books: English, Maths, a diary and a jotter.
Mr. Hendenberg was headmaster from 1979 to 1992. He loved music and drama, both of which soon became the strength of the school. The school would put on many plays in and around the village. Maypole dancing became a popular activity in school, and dances were often performed during village events. At Easter, children had become accustomed to roll hard-boiled eggs down the hill. The children whose egg survived and got to the bottom of the hill first won.
During the 1980s and the 1990s, links were built with Umberley, Phillip and Swinby schools. This cuffs link would allow children to move between schools so all children could benefit from each teacher's expression. Chittlehampton was the place to go for science, sport and pottery because Keith Lockyer, who became head teacher in 1992, was keen on pottery. Chittlehampton had their own hill and pottery wheel. This was kept inside the old toilet block, as toilets had now been moved inside the school. In 1997, there were 78 children in the school taught in 3 classes.
In 2001, a brand new classroom was officially opened by Lady Aaron. This classroom was built on the space between the original building and the old toilet block. A staircase from the back of the old building allowed people to access the roof, so now the school was on 2 levels. There was great excitement when the building was being built, as cranes had to lift a mobile classroom over the top of the building and into the playground in order for children to continue to be taught. Originally intended as a school hall, it was generally only used as a classroom for the infants. There were now 45 children in class, and there were 3 classes in the morning and 2 in the afternoons, as the 2 junior years classes would merge.
In 2002, further improvements were made inside the school. The smaller classroom was divided into 2 areas, a head teacher's office and a computer suite. A corridor was built to run down the length of the downstairs so that people who walked through the school didn't have to disturb the classes.
In 2004, the large downstairs class was shortened and the school office was extended. The number of children in school was now dropping to around 40 children, and there were just 2 classes, an infant class and a junior class. In 2010, Chittlehampton School entered a federation with Philley School, one governing body overseeing both schools. Steve Mellor became the executive head and Wendy Evans became the head of teaching Chittlehampton School. This federation later extended to include Cobblestone School and Sprayton School and became Devon Moors Federation.
In 2014, Chittlehampton had 6 bantam eggs. These hens then stayed at school and became much-loved pets for the next 4 years.
In 2016, the school celebrated its 150th birthday with a special church service and party for the village. In March 2020, the COVID-19 pandemic caused all schools to shut for 3 months. Learning was emailed home by the class teachers every week for parents to teach. In June, when only selected year groups were allowed to return, lessons would take place on the playground whenever possible. All exams were cancelled this year.
A further closure of school occurred on January 2021. However, many of our 19 children on roll were able to attend school as they were children of key workers. Those who could not attend would take part in live lessons over the internet. The small number of children in school at this time meant that once children were back in school, the school could function as one bubble and the disruption of COVID was not too great.
Pupil numbers continue to drop, and in 2022 the governing body made the decision to close the school.
with all that we've known and all that we've grown, it's clear that we've got nothing to fear. So goodbye, goodbye, thanks for the memories. Goodbye, goodbye, thanks for the fun. Goodbye, goodbye, it's time to fly. Goodbye, we're living on a high. Remember all those who inspired us, or picked us back up when we fell. Remember the sound of the laughter, the welcoming ring of the bell. Remember the brilliant adventures, with all of the friends that we met. 'Cause with all that we've done and all that we've done, we're never ever gonna forget. So goodbye, goodbye, thanks for the memories. Goodbye, goodbye, thanks for the fun. Goodbye.